Good God afternoon. Oh, I could have gone to the fish fry today. I tell you, it's one of my favorite places to eat. They got good hush puppies, they got good fish and shrimp, and they got good French fries. The grease is always fresh, and I had some French fries at one of the other places in town the other day, and I meant to tell them they needed to change their grease. You know, you got to keep that grease changed when you're using seed oils and stuff. Go back to using animal fat. It doesn't break down near as bad as vegetable oils. Well, I'll come on here briefly and talk about what I think the problem with denominations is. I think sometimes they put too much emphasis on family and not enough on evangelism. Revivals are to revive the congregation. Evangelistic ministries are to get people saved and get new member into the congregation. I think what happened to the Presbyterian Church was one, we allow lady ministers, and don't get me wrong, I think lady ministers are okay. God wouldn't have anointed so many women ministers if it weren't okay. Like Maria Woodworth Anner. Catherine Kuhlman, Amy Silkman McPherson, the list goes on and on. What that scripture meant, because Eve came from Adam, Adam came before Eve, is a mystery that needs to be found out exactly what God, Lord, meant when Paul wrote that scripture. May mean elders. The elders are supposed to be the head of the church in the Presbyterian denomination. And what happened was most churches went unicameral, which we used to have an elders board and a deacons board. And most churches went unicameral, just one system. The elders wind up doing the deacons' work, taking care of the arguing over paint and carpet and such. The spiritual well-being of the members, the care and need of the members, the visitation and prayer for the sick, preaching the word is left to the pastor, and he's just one person. So many churches have part-time pastors or lay pastors. And when somebody comes to a congregation, to a church with a burden of spiritual needs, of hurting from a lost child, or seeking salvation, seeking answers to salvation, and they come under a burden to get it right with God, It needs to be an altar call. There needs to be the Presbyterian model was the communicants class, but the church started relying on that because it was less controversial and easier to do. Didn't contend with the unsaved adults, and they left and went elsewhere to get saved. Unless they had a pastor like John P. John P. was a good blend of Presbyterian and evangelical, with a strong desire to be Pentecostal thrown in. And the church was at near capacity for most of his pastorate. And continued some years afterward. The early church shared everything in common so that no one was in need. Today's church, you got to be, I don't know, it's just a bad situation. I don't have all the answers, but I think the unicameral system for most churches has led to the deterioration of the lost membership and failure to gain new members. Not caring for the spiritual and physical needs of the congregation, monetarily and such. Like giving to causes and food banks and stuff like that. Sometimes your money would be better off given to a homeless person than to a church.